I'm 32 years old. Up until 2 years ago, when I started my teaching career, I never made over $50,000 a year. I was working two jobs. I was doing everything right. I was saving as much money as I can, but my net worth wasn't increasing at the rate I wanted it to. Fast forward to today, I just recently crossed over six figures in savings and investments, right? And I still live pretty simply. My cost of living is still pretty much the same that it was 2 years ago. So what's changed? For one, I stopped saving in dollars and started saving in Bitcoin. The game changer for me wasn't just getting a better job, even though I did. And I didn't win the lottery, right? What I started to realize was that how we save matters just as much as how much we save. I made the decision to stop putting my money into a system where it was designed to extract and leak value. And instead of that, I started putting it and saving it in Bitcoin. So before we start talking about Bitcoin, I want to talk about the problem that we all have with money, right? Before you can get to the solution, you need to know and understand the problem. So in 1971, the US dollar went off the gold standard. And by extension, all modern day currencies went off the gold standard. For the first time in history, money wasn't backed by a scarce asset. It wasn't backed by gold. And this allowed central banks around the world to be able to print unlimited amounts of currency, right? They call this quantitative easing or stimulus packages, right? So this is when they just inject money into the market. Where does that money come from? They print it out of thin air. They click a button and the money just appears. Crazy, right? So check this out. Since 1913, the US dollar has lost something like 98% of its purchasing power, right? The Canadian dollar, since 1971, has lost something like 96% of its purchasing power. And guess what? This isn't by accident. This is by design. This is how our monetary system is engineered. When I was a kid, my family lived in a 2-bedroom apartment and rent was probably like $950. Fast forward to today, the rent for that same apartment is something like $2,100, right? I remember as a kid, my parents used to fill up our car with gas for like 25, $30. Fast forward to today, you need something like 65 to $70 to fill up your tank. Like, that's not normal inflation. What that is your savings evaporating in front of your eyes while it sits in a bank account. Here's what really opened my eyes to the BS, right? The average person today works longer and harder than their parents did and produces a little bit more value, yet they're struggling way more financially. How is that possible? I'll tell you why, right? Because people are saving in a currency that's being constantly devalued. Bitcoin fixes this problem, right? I need you to understand that there will only be 21 million Bitcoin in existence, right? There's no CEO, no government, no military leader, no billionaire, no king that can change that. Only 21 million forever. Not 20 million in one, not 22 million because a politician thinks that his country needs a stimulus package. Only 21 million Bitcoin will ever exist. This is what makes Bitcoin fundamentally different from all other currencies. The dollar, the yen, the peso, all of that, right? It's scarce, right? There's only a finite amount. So Bitcoin is the first truly scarce digital asset that humans have ever had. The first one in history, right? So while dollars can be printed infinitely, Bitcoin is mathematically capped, right? The supply is capped, it's limited, right? Every 4 years, the number of Bitcoin that can be minted or mined gets cut in half. This is called the halving, right? So this halving, the last one happened April 20th, 2024, right? The next one's gonna be in 2028. This halving gives us a predictable schedule so we know how much Bitcoin is gonna be mined, right? And this is all verifiable on the blockchain. You could check this stuff out. Now think about it. Would you rather save in a currency that's being devalued constantly over time? Or would you rather save in something that's designed to store and hold its value over time, even appreciate over time? For the last 2 years, I've been on go mode, right? Any money I get from my 9 to 5, I'm putting at least 60% of that into Bitcoin, right? Any money I make from my side business doing training or coaching, I'm putting into Bitcoin. The stocks that I don't see outperforming Bitcoin over the long term, I'm selling those, putting it into Bitcoin, right? My ETFs, especially in the last year and a half, I've been selling off and taking profits, putting it into Bitcoin, right? And the proof is in the pudding. The numbers don't lie, right? While you're watching this, I want you to pause this, right? Pull up a chart of Bitcoin's returns over the last 10 years and put it against any other asset. You tell me, you tell me where I should be storing my money. This isn't about getting lucky in crypto and, gambling, right? Even though I played around with some altcoins for a little bit. Everyone remembers me with my dogwoof hat and Solana and all that stuff. But once I truly understood what real money was, right? It was a no-brainer, right? Bitcoin is the best savings technology the world has ever seen, right? And it makes no sense to risk your money in another asset or another coin that's not gonna outperform it. So let's talk about the banks and why they don't deserve your trust. So when you store your money in a bank, you don't really have control over it, right? They can lend it out, they can leverage it, and if something goes wrong, they could freeze your account, they can block you from getting access to your account, or they'll just simply eat away your savings through inflation, right? Right. Remember during COVID, the protesters, how they had their bank accounts blocked and frozen, right? That's not control, right? They could stop how you eat. They could stop how you pay for your food and shelter. That's not control. Bro. Also, let's look at some numbers, right? The average savings account gives you maybe 1% interest on your money per year, right? The best online savings account or high yield savings accounts, which are online, they'll give you 3 to 5% per year. Meanwhile, inflation on paper is at 7 to 8%, but we know the number is actually much higher. Inflation's probably more like 15 to 25%, right, in real terms, right? By taking in those values and those numbers, it's a mathematical certainty that by saving in a bank or a high yield savings account, you are going to get poorer over time. That is a certainty. Now, Bitcoin, when we look at its average annual return, right, over the last 10 years, even with its volatility, because we know it goes up and it drops down a lot, but even with all that volatility, the average annual return when you hold your money in Bitcoin is something like 81% per year. So 81% versus 1%, right? Or 4 to 5%. The numbers don't lie. The numbers don't lie. Bitcoin is the best performing asset this world has ever seen, but it's definitely the best asset to hold over the last 15 years. Over time, everybody's gonna figure this out. You got the wealthiest people in the world buying Bitcoin. You got governments buying Bitcoin. You got corporations buying Bitcoin. You got sovereign wealth funds buying Bitcoin, right? Over time, everyone is going to understand that this is the best and only asset you should be holding your money in, storing your money in, because it's the only scarce asset that we have in the world. When you store your money in assets other than Bitcoin, there's a heavy component of trust involved. You have to trust governments. You have to trust central banks. You've got to trust people, right? I don't want to have to trust anybody with my wealth or with the wealth of my family or with the wealth of my future children, right? Right? With Bitcoin, all you need to do is trust time, trust code, right? Coding, and trust mathematics. That's it. At the end of the day, I store my money in Bitcoin because I want my life to get cheaper over time. I don't want to have to work harder and longer to buy less things or to not enjoy my life, to not enjoy my free time, right? Because remember, we're not chasing money for the sake of chasing money. We're chasing money for what we think it could get us, right? And we know that money can buy our freedom, right? That's what we're all after. Freedom of time, freedom to say no, freedom to live our life where we want and how we want. So remember, our money is a proxy for our time, intelligence, and energy, right? And I don't want to store my time, intelligence, and energy in something that's being devalued, right? That basically means that you're robbing me of my time. You're robbing me of my energy. You're robbing me of my intelligence, right? I want to save my money in something that's going to appreciate in value over time and give me more freedom over time. I want you to know that you don't need to be rich to start saving in Bitcoin. You could buy as little as $5 of Bitcoin. You could buy 50 bucks, right? But you need to understand why Bitcoin's important and how it works, or else you're going to get Bitcoin at the price you deserve. Today, I think Bitcoin just hit 106,000, right? You don't want to be one of the people that blows it off and starts to buy at 1 million or 3 million or whatever the case, because it's going there, right? Bitcoin has no limit in terms of how high it can go, right? Because there's a limited amount of Bitcoin, but an unlimited amount of dollars that's eventually going to flow into Bitcoin. So keep that in mind. Bitcoin isn't just an investment, right? It's not just a savings technology. It's a paradigm shift in the way that we think about money and time and savings, right? It's technology that's been designed to help us achieve freedom. Before I go, I'm gonna leave you with some names of people and resources that you should look into and do the research for yourself. Look at Chris Johnson's YouTube and his Bit by Bit podcast. Look up Rajat Soni on YouTube. Read the Bitcoin Standard. Look up Jeff Booth. Look up the Hidden Money series by Mike Maloney. Look up a guy named Robert Breedlove, all his podcasts, right? Gosh, man, there's a whole bunch. Did I say Jeff Booth already? Yeah, Jeff Booth. All right, if you hit YouTube, you'll find tons of stuff, right? But you need to do your own research and go down the rabbit hole for yourself. You need to understand what it is you're dealing with and what it is that you're trying to hold and get. If you made it to the end of this video, I want you to comment freedom technology, right? If I gave you something to share about or I connected some dots for you, share it with someone else, subscribe. I'm going to drop my YouTube channel soon. And I appreciate you guys for watching. I just want to share this information with you guys because it's changed my life. Saving in Bitcoin has changed my life, and I know it will do the same for you.